Interestingly, like for example, some of the people I've met in my journey have made me realize that creating wealth, to what purpose is it? You know, because you can't take the money with you, right? So is it leaving the world a better place than you found it? I think there's a lot of that. But isn't it interesting that almost always, at some point when people, really wealthy people, realize that they can't take the money with, either they give it away or they put it in a trust, or ultimately they get a statue or name a building after themselves, right? And I think, and it's mostly men. I've never met any a woman who builds her own statue or puts their name on a building. Maybe it's a miss, maybe it's an opportunity. But I think it becomes about legacy. There's a point where, you know, you want the world to know that you were there, and therefore it is better because you've existed. And I think the more evolved you become, that becomes more important to one, because no amount of artwork or cars or houses are you going to be able to take with you. So the memory of the stuff you've done becomes more important. I think I'm privileged in a little bit to have had this insight before I'm old, decrepit, and have all the money, and I think, oh, what am I going to do now? Believe it or not, it's actually more enjoyable to have an impact on someone's life now when you can see their journey. Because it only takes one person to have an impact on your life. It took one person to have an impact on mine, and I remember it because my mother won't let me forget it. She was at work one day. She was working at the copier machine, printing some documents for the big bosses. And one of them came, saw her at the printer and says, "What does your son do?" She says, he's in primary school. The other one is in high school, but my youngest is in primary school. And the guy said, "You know what? If you can get him a school, we'll pay for it." So she spent the next 2 days hustling for a school. And she found me a school, St. Benedict's, which was one of the first multiracial schools back then. That one guy just taking an interest ultimately changed my life. So I'm very aware that it's not always the big contributions that necessarily make the change. It's sometimes just you taking one guy, just one personal interest, and then it just rolls forward. I think wealth is definitely an enabler of happiness. If anyone tells you differently, they're being disingenuous. I think definitely, but it's what or how you use that wealth. To whom much is given, much is expected. And I always find people say, "I'm giving back." I always think, well, that means you took more than you should have in the first place, right? So there's a negative connotation to that. I think there's good in doing good. It's good business to do good. It doesn't have to be make money and then do good. You can do both simultaneously. But I do definitely think wealth is an enabler for some happiness, if not all, assuming you know how to use it appropriately.